Hey, everybody, this is Mike Messier. I'm here with professional actor Harley Race from the Iron Claw. He's a return guest, and it is Kevin Anton. He plays the legendary NWA World's Heavyweight Champion Harley Race in the Iron Claw. And Kevin, you must be excited because the Iron Claw is hitting big on streaming this past week. I think it just came out May 10th. Is that right?
Yeah. It hit HBO Max May 10th. Yeah, so it's now available to stream for free if you have HBO Max. It's great. Yeah, and I think it's still number one as of right now.
Yeah, it was coming up big because I have HBO Max. In fact, I was just watching the movie again on HBO Max this morning before we got started because I wanted to refresh my thoughts. So we'll get into other aspects of your career in a few minutes, but first, how has it been received? Like, I'm just imagining, but has there been like a second wave of interest or momentum for the Iron Claw since
Yeah,
the?
yeah, definitely. Like, a lot of people are reaching out still. People like it, and I guess especially since the HBO release, I think there's a new set of eyes on it, and more people are getting to experience Sean's great film.
You know what I was thinking about this. A parallel that you might appreciate is that there was a legendary film that wasn't huge box office. Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, The Shawshank Redemption. I think that was back in '92 or '94.
Great movie.
Yeah, and but if you look at the history of that film, it was not a huge box office success. It was totally underappreciated, overlooked. And but once it hit cable TV and back then, Blockbuster home, I guess it was VHS at that era,
Hmm.
it became a movie that people kind of assume at this point, oh yeah, that won some Oscar awards. Didn't that win Best Picture? And
Yeah, that's the way it
it's
works.
it's really interesting how some films are widely loved and received, and some take a while to kind of get into the canon of great films. And you never know with this stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. But I will say, in terms of box office for the Iron Claw, it's considered a super hit or a blockbuster based upon the budget. So the budget was 15, 16, and I think it did 45 or 46 at the box office, which is three times the budget. It's considered a huge hit monetarily
Yes.
within perspective.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get it. And I guess I was just a little not not personally upset that much, but I was kind of feeling like the film was overlooked at the big awards because, like as you said the last time we talked, Kevin, Zach Efron did such an awesome job as Kevin Von Erich, and the guy that played the father, the guy that played
Holt,
David.
yeah, Harris. So to answer that, and this is I, the film wasn't even ready, from what I understand, until like a week before the Dallas premiere. So if you put that into perspective, the Dallas premiere was, I think, November 8th of 23. I mean, all the awards, they were already decided. Like, I mean, that's the thing. It's all based upon momentum and release, and that's just the way it turned out. You know, um, had it been released earlier, or maybe even this year, I think it'd be a different story. But I will say one thing, like you said earlier about the Shawshank. I think the Iron Claw is one of those films that Sean created so perfectly that it's going to live on, like, for a long time. Probably even more so than a lot of the movies that were up for awards last year. That are great movies, but I just think that the Iron Claw is so relatable, especially as a family story,
Right.
and the way it's shot, that it's just going to keep finding more and more audiences. You're probably going to see it on, like, cable TV or streaming 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Kevin, I have a theory about this movie, if you'll indulge me,
Sure.
because I've seen it several times, as I'm sure you have. And when you initially watch any movie, it's like, okay, who's your protagonist? Who's your
Yep.
antagonist? Who's the good guy, bad guy? And in this one, there's a few elements. First of all, I noticed today that the song, I believe it's Blue Oyster Cult, "Don't Fear the
Mm-hmm.
Reaper," "Don't
Yep.
Fear the Reaper," kind of
Yep.
starts the movie, as almost as a foreshadowing. I mean, what a choice! I didn't realize that until watching the movie today, because we're seeing that as the wrestling fans are coming into the Dallas Sportatorium to see David Carey and David Carey and Kevin Von Erich wrestle, and we're hearing "Don't Fear the Reaper," which is going to take the life of David. We're hearing that before he goes into the ring for his very first match, right? So that's a good foreshadowing. And then I was thinking, and tell me if I'm crazy here, but I feel like Kevin Von Erich is definitely our central character. He's our protagonist, and there's a few conflicts going on. It's Fritz's quest to get that NWA World Heavyweight title belt, but
Hmm.
it's also the sons slash brothers' quest to get their father's approval. And in a sense, it's really comes down to Kevin versus Kerry are fighting for that father's approval. And eventually, Kerry, once he's achieved his father's quest for that NWA World title belt in honor of their other brother, David, Kerry kind of quits that quest, by taking his own life, which leaves Kevin the winner by default. And unfortunately, or maybe Kevin just has this realization when he attacks his father in the front yard, that this quest for father's approval was never worth it anyway. Because what's it all
Yeah,
about, right?
yeah. I mean, that's basically, you know, that's a good summary. I agree with that. It's really a story about family and brothers and the struggles within that. And Holt, who was amazing in this, you know, he really, it really is about the relationship between him and his desire to get that belt, which he never achieved, and kind of like going through his sons doing that. And um you're right, like you said, I mean, eventually, Kerry wins, but then Kevin, fights Rick at the end, but he gets disqualified. It's this whole dichotomy, but and it's really, them wanting to please, Fritz, their father. So yeah, I mean, and everything that happens in between is, that's the story.
Yeah, and as we said last time, Kevin, and for people that want to check it out, Kevin and I had a really nice interview that's on this channel.
Yeah.
Actually, I have like 4 YouTube channels. There's one Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan, one Man and a Camera Films, which is the channel for my films, and also one Mike Messier, which is my movie reviews. And Kevin, because of the overlapping context of talking with you, I've put this our prior interview on all 3 channels, as I will this
Yeah,
one.
I saw it's great. Yeah, yeah. I mean, keep plugging away. It's great.
Yeah, and so let's talk about you and your career. You're really busy. I'm checking out your IMDb Pro page. It looks like you filmed recently a TV pilot, a 20-minute pilot that it's called I Do. You play a stalker in that one, and
Yeah, that
I
was that was filmed like 2 or 3 years ago. Though it's still like, I guess editing, or I'm not really sure what the status of that is. Yeah.
What are some projects that you'd like us to know about now?
Well, right now, just stuff in development. I was cast in the new Mark Ruffalo HBO project called Task Force, or Task. However, as a recurring role too. However, I had to turn it. There was a scheduling conflict last minute, so that just didn't go through. So it's just one of those things. And after the strike, in terms of production, everything's a little slow now. So they're saying it's going to take about 6 months.
Right.
So if you factor in 6 months from the strike ended end of November, say November, it was November 8th, or it was the 8th. But so like June or July, I think production will start getting back into full swing. These things take time. So now it's just looking at different scripts, different productions, and then just trying to figure out your next move.
Hey, Kevin, we've got a comment from a real life friend of mine, a gentleman that won an award at my Avalonia Festival of Short Films back in 2020. And so I've met this gentleman in person. So Hank Bagwell is a filmmaker, and he's a gentleman down here in the southern states along with me. Hank says, I just watched the film the other night and can say, as a huge old school wrestling fan, Kevin killed it as the great Harley.
Oh
So
man, Hank, I really appreciate that, and thanks so much for watching the movie. Any and every time I hear that someone experiences the Iron Claw, and I truly mean this, it just brings a smile to my face just to see all the work that went in, from the actors to production to every single person involved. It's just great for people to get to experience that. And Hank, that's great, and I'm glad you saw it, and I'm glad you liked Harley.
The movie I think planted some seeds with me as a wrestling fan, Kevin, because I've been watching on YouTube and digging up some old world class championship
Uh,
wrestling. And just last night, I discovered an hour and 40-minute video that somebody put up on YouTube titled "The Best of David Von Erich Part One." So
oh,
I kind of did my YouTube scheming, and I was able to copy and upload that video for my own watching. And just, I mean, I was watching something the other night, Kevin, where it's like uh, world class December 1985, Christmas night 1985, and they've actually brought in the great Japanese wrestling legend Antonio Inoki into Dallas to wrestle like an 8-minute match, and he defeats Steve Dr. Death Williams, who's one of the toughest guys ever to wrestle. And the idea, I believe, was that World Class in Texas must have been signing on to do some cross promotional stuff with the Japanese wrestlers. So it really is amazing that that promotion kind of was ahead of its time. And unfortunately, with all the tragedies that are seen in the Iron Claw, it just didn't. It did become so big. It just didn't have the longevity as something like the WWE has at this point.
yeah, no, that's totally it. You know, you're right. A lot of it does have to do with the popularity of the Von Erichs and the ensuing tragedies that followed.
Yeah. And now, Kevin, as you said, the film industry is kind of in a recovery time right
Hmm.
now, film and television and everything. And I notice as one kind of residual from that, that a lot of the auditoriums and the movie theaters here that I go to are having things like the Phantom Menace, from 25 years
Yeah, yeah,
ago,
yeah.
a lot of re-releases and stuff. And
Mhm.
and I guess does maybe we just talk about this in general for a moment. When there is a strike in the film industry, and this is why maybe the average person doesn't think about this stuff, but it really does have a trickle down effect that lasts a year, 2 years. Do you want to speak
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. So I mean, it affects everything. I mean, in anywhere you're shooting, and whether it be L.A., New York, Atlanta, Chicago, uh, Europe. So it affects everything down from the actors, everyone in production, to the costume people, to hair and makeup, to everyone who works on like the actual shooting, the DPs, the grips, the electricians, and just with all that involved, think about all the catering that loses work. I mean, that's a big business for businesses who cater food to these productions. For that long time, it was just that's a lot of their business, and it's just shut down. It's devastating, and it's unfortunate that. And I'm going to say this, just one little comment about residuals and the money, and I hear some people saying, why the actors go on strike, blah blah blah. I don't think people understand the payment structure for actors, especially since streaming came into play. It's not like back in the days when you did a broadcast show and you made 20, 25 an episode. It's not like that anymore. And then the residuals, the streamers changed it, and I think a lot of it has to do with SAG not catching up to the contracts. But just do this one mathematical equation in your mind. Consider that Netflix has over 200 million subscribers worldwide, and just times that times, I think it's the lowest packages, I think 10.99 or something like that. That's monthly. So that's how much money there. If you do that on a calculator, you don't even get a number. You get a
Right.
symbol. So just times that times 12 months. It's unfortunate that it came down to a strike, which we'll see what happens in the next 2 years, because there'll be another recon contract thing. But it's when they say that Wall Street and big business has and is taking over Hollywood. There's a lot of truth to that, and hopefully, people speak up, and it makes a turn for the right direction where, art and people's voices, and good scripts, really, really, take center stage, as opposed to, these streamers who just, want to crank out, you know, these pictures just to make money, which is good. I mean, it's a business, and everyone understands that. However, it also has to be, a fair game too.
I noticed on your IMDb pro page, Kevin, that you have some director, writer credits, and
Yeah.
so as we've talked about, as a actor, sometimes you got to do more than you got to wear more than one hat, right? So is there any of these directing some short films and stuff like that? How has that kind of influenced your acting, being on the other side of the camera?
Yeah, so it probably helped out a lot. I mean, like, I think back in 2010, 2011, I really started to say, go like the Ben Affleck way, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, where you have to create your own work. So I just created, like, I started writing small commercials. They got picked up by, companies like AT&T, Chevy, etc. And then I started doing short films, and I bought the equipment, and now I have a full, like, studio equipment stuff. So I can just, with the lenses, I can shoot, and I have a cinema camera. So that helped me in terms of knowing production even more than being on set. But I think it also helped me in terms of acting, being a director, knowing that, knowing how the camera works, and knowing that, and everyone always says less is more, less is more. Yes, but I think what they're really trying to say is you got to be real. So you can be super big, but as long as it's real and it's truthful, that's the important thing. And I think, directing, really, hammered that in, because you always, as an actor, as a young actor, you always hear that, don't do anything, let the camera pick that up. And you think, what does that mean?
Right.
And I think what it means is make it real, have a real thought. You can be in a scene with someone and you're talking about death or whatever, but in your mind as the actor, you can be thinking about what time is lunch. It doesn't matter, because as long as it's a real thought, that'll translate to the audience. If you're thinking about your lines or how you're doing or how you're looking, that's going to hold you back. So you have to, learn to become free.
That's a great way of putting it. And I think that's such a thing now, Kevin, where, a lot of people now, I think, are maybe getting into the entertainment world with a self-trained or a trial by fire, like jumping on YouTube and everything, which is great. But taking acting classes, directing your own works with actors, like you said, you have your own studio at home there. I think the more that you still got to take this stuff seriously. You know what I mean? Like, just because the fact that I can pick up my phone and film something doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be interesting unless I put the work in and write a script that's worth watching. And it's such a ever evolving world and of entertainment.
I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's in today's day and age, you have a ton of influencers, whether it be on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, and they have their value and they have their worth, and a lot of them do interesting work. When they're called upon to be put in, like, let's say, production, which does happen sometimes, then it's a little different, because it's a completely different animal. Like you said, you do need the training. I mean, it's much different than picking up your phone, filming something, and then saying, "Oh, that I didn't like that. Let's do it again," or, like, filming it a million times and putting all these things until you get it right. That's cool, but you can't do that on set.
Right.
You have to deliver it right then. Like, whenever you give it an audition, it's got to be that in your cast. It's got to be that good when you walk on set. They don't really rehearse, unless with Iron Claw you have to rehearse the fighting scenes. But I mean, you're not going to rehearse that much on set. It's just not there. They expect you to deliver right when you walk on set, and I think that's the difference between, like, trained actors or professional actors, as opposed to, like, let's say, these influencers who probably want to be that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Right. It does. I mean, even it carries over into the world of sports. I mean, the big thing coming up later in this summer that I'm not terribly motivated to watch, but a lot of people will, is Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson.
Yep.
You got a 30-year-old influencer and a 55-year-old, retired champion. And it's like, I guess for me, I'm thinking back to Lennox Lewis versus Evander Holyfield in 1999, and that's my definition of a fight that I want to watch, not the 55-year-old retired guy and the 30-year-old influencer. But pop culture is a weird thing, man, and you never know what people are going to bite into. But I feel like quality and putting the work in, that comes paramount to me.
No, absolutely. But back to that, the Mike Tyson Jake Paul thing. That's a little money grab, and that's fine. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Mike Tyson's gonna. I mean, I don't think this kid knows what he's gotten himself involved with. I really don't.
I think it.
I don't
Yeah.
care what the age difference is.
Right. I think it's going to be a hug fest myself. I think it's going to
It
be,
could be.
yeah, it's going to be a 12-round disappointment.
Yeah.
Kevin, as we wrap things up here, we're in May 20th, 2024, as we're taping this, and the summer is coming up. Any plans for the summer? Anything that you want to talk about as we wrap things up here?
No, just trying to live life. Trying to get the next gig. That's really it. And I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you spreading the word about the Iron Claw because to end, I really think that Sean wrote, directed, and produced a beautiful movie. I mean, and the way it was shot from Mateus too did a great job as director of photography. I mean, just beautifully shot. Every time I see it, I discover more.
I tell you, like I said, I was watching again this morning before we get on here, and that song, "I Want to Live This Way," is that is that an original song for the movie, Kevin?
Oh yeah. So it was written by a couple of people. I think one of them is Richard Reed Perry, and I believe his wife, Richard Reed Perry from Arcade Fire, the band Arcade Fire. So he actually scored. He scored the movie too. So like, he did the score for them.
Yeah.
But that song he wrote, and Little Scream sings on it. It's an amazing version. But I also got to point out the band that was in the movie who sang with Michael. They're an actual band called The Lovers.
Okay.
And I believe they're from New Orleans. You should look them up. I think it's Luvvres. So they did their own version of the song, and it's a lot different. But I think you'll enjoy that one too. I love that song.
Me too.
I mean, I love it. But just check it out on Spotify. It's a great version. Both versions are just amazing.
Yeah, like I said, every time I watch this movie, I'm finding more stuff. Let me because I actually took down some notes. So I talked about the carry and the what I saw is the competition that when it comes down to it, Kevin kind of realizes, hey, this competition for my father's approval, at what cost? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Some other quick notes I took. It's interesting that in the opening tag match, which is David's debut, teaming up with Kevin, they're going up against Bruiser Brody and Gino Hernandez, and unfortunately, those are two other fallen legends of world-class wrestling for the hardcore wrestling fans. They know that Gino died in '86 and Bruiser Brody died in '88. I had a thought that Kerry not getting to go to the Olympics because of President Carter's boycott on the Olympics in 1980, I realized that kind of feels similar to David passing away before he gets the NWA world title in '84. So Fritz's kind of paranoia that the family is always getting screwed over by the powers that be, I can't really argue with him, because whether it's
no, you can't, and Kerry coming home was an important part, because basically that's right after my fight with Zach. So basically our fight, and when David comes up and takes the mic, and then blah blah blah. Our fight ends Act 1. So when Kerry comes home, that's kind of the beginning of Act 2. Or actually, I'm sorry, it is the beginning of Act 2. So that's a good point with the whole Olympics and everything. And that must have been tough.
There's a lot of stuff in this movie that, like, the more you watch it, the more you see. And then I did want to point out another actor that I thought did a great job. In addition to yourself, Pam as the wife, can't put her over. Great. Yeah, she was awesome. the mom, Doris, she's been in a lot of stuff in her career. But the gentleman that played Bill Mercer, the commentator, I
Oh,
thought
he
I
was
kind of,
great, right?
yeah, I kind of overlooked him a few times, but he really
Yeah.
has a
Hmm.
presence.
Hmm.
And I guess I really just felt that overall, like, Dad Fritz finally gets that NWA World Title belt from Kerry on behalf of David, and Kevin's kind of left out of it. Kevin Von Erich's left out of it, but at what cost? And the
Yeah.
cost is the same thing that you've been pursuing causes this little divide between Kevin and Kerry, and ultimately, Kerry's excess takes him out, and then Kevin's the last man standing. And as we see, for those that have seen the movie, I won't give away the line, but what his sons say to him as Kevin's kind of hugging his sons at the end, it's so poignant and heartwarming and also heartbreaking at the same time. That final son to dad line, so.
Yeah. I mean, people in the audience when we saw it at the premiere were like, because it jolts you.
Kevin, Anton, I know you've got to go, man. You've got a
Yeah.
busy day. I want to thank you so much. For those in the Florida area, I will be showing on Thursday at 5:10 at the Fort Myers Film Festival. The book teaser slash proof of concept for my story, A Distance from Avalon. It's the book teaser for the novel version, and the proof of concept video for the feature length screenplay version. And Kevin, if we ever get to a point, my friend, where we can work together on a project, I would love that, because I've been
That'd be
watching
great.
I've been watching your work, man, and you really take this stuff seriously, and I appreciate you so much for coming on here, and we'll have you on again.
Mike, thanks so much for your time. And, everyone go see The Iron Claw now on HBO Max.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Please share this link if you can. Just copy the URL and share it all over the place. Mike Messier and Kevin Anton.
Thanks, man.